Austin and I walk over to Otto, and he's in this condition. He has a shaved head. His eyes are darting around they're as big as saucers. He's blind. He's deaf. He's got a feeding tube. And we kneel down and we hug him and try to connect with him. And he's a complete vegetable. And his bottom teeth look like they had taken a pair of pliers and rearranged them. And so there was no comforting Otto. This was horrible. And this noise he kept doing this.
We weren't prepared for this at all. No one.
How could you be?
No one.
How could you be?
Had any idea going in there what we were going to see. His hands and legs were
totally deformed.
And he was in this weird position.
You want to say this was not our son. This was our son.
Yeah.
And we're proud of him.
Yeah.
But this was our son. And this was the condition that Kim and his regime intentionally put him in.
How I'm listening to you, and I'm just trying to. How did he die? How did he die specifically?
Well,
Has it been explained to you?
You mean in the
fever.
Well, sure. 2 days after Otto came home, his fever spiked to over 104 degrees. Otto had this huge scar on his right foot. He was on his deathbed when he came home to us. This was not a pleasant sight.
That's
was a
why they
horrible
released
sight.
him. They didn't want him to die on their soil.
How has it been explained to you what North Korea did? When you say torture, what did they do? Do you know?
Well, no. North Korea doesn't even acknowledge that. They considered it a humanitarian gesture, sending Otto home. His teeth looked like they had been rearranged with a pair of pliers. You can only look at the evidence. A perfectly healthy young American visiting there, an innocent young American, comes home with severe brain damage. But it's not like it happened and they shipped him home immediately. It's a year later. These people are terrorists. Kim and his regime intentionally injured Otto.
Help me understand, because
Sure.
looking at the doctors, they said, it suffered extensive loss of brain tissue, consistent with cardiopulmonary arrest, was in a state of unresponsive wakefulness, didn't know what caused his brain damage. They say he didn't show any obvious indications of trauma or evidence of either acute or healing fractures. Why opt out of an autopsy?
That's a really good question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Otto and our family have been through enough. Enough. Otto was abandoned by his family, his country, and the rest of the world. He was kidnapped in North Korea. He was isolated from his family and the world. He was paraded in front of their public. Our family and Otto were humiliated by the North Koreans. And ultimately, when Kim made the decision, Otto was tortured and essentially murdered. Enough.
So I've been getting a lot of questions asked of me about teeth and do we see any evidence of trauma and so forth. So I thought maybe I should have a little press conference and kind of clarify some things. We actually didn't have a press conference about this case at all. And for a lot of reasons, mostly out of respect for his family. But at this point, it seems like there are more questions than answers, and maybe we should provide you some of those answers. So, with respect to whether there was any evidence of trauma to the teeth, yes, we did do a view. We did do an external examination of Otto. We also had extensive medical imaging on Otto. We also did a post-mortem CT scan, which we define as a virtual autopsy. And with all of that information, we were able to, and we also consulted our forensic dentist, Dr. Wright, and had him take a look at the imaging, specifically dealing with the lower teeth and mandible. And he agreed with us that there is no evidence of trauma to the lower teeth or mandible on the imaging or by physical examination. So that being said, I thought we addressed that particular question, but was there anything else that
Dr.
specifically?
Smucker, why did you feel the need at the time to reach out to a forensic dentist? Is that typical?
We usually reach out to a forensic dentist for identification purposes. A lot of times we will identify people that we may suspect is so-and-so, but we'll confirm that with his expertise, using his expertise. So we have a very good relationship with Dr. Wright, and so it was an easy call to make. I mean, as a radiologist, I can tell you I looked at the imaging, and I looked at the mandible, I looked at the teeth, and I felt very comfortable that there wasn't any evidence of trauma, but let's face it, I'm not a dentist.
So the teeth were not, quote, rearranged with a pair of pliers, as the father has said to him. It appeared that twice he said that in an interview, that they were rearranged with pliers.
There was no evidence of trauma to the teeth. Now, that being said, I will tell you that the forensic dentist did let me know that the front incisors often have a rounded root, and they will sometimes twist as they're developing, but I'm not an expert on that, but I can tell you that we didn't see any evidence of trauma to the teeth.
Were you surprised at the statement that the Warmbier family made yesterday?
We were surprised that that statement.
Was there any evidence he was tortured?
I think you need to define torture. The fact that he has anoxic encephalopathy, or brain damage caused by the lack of oxygen to the brain, we don't know what the root cause of that is. There's a couple of ways that you can get that. So you either have to discontinue blood flow to the brain or stop breathing. And what caused either one of those possible events, we wouldn't know. I mean, could that have been torture at the time? We don't know. We don't have enough information about what happened to Otto at that initial insult to draw any concrete conclusions.
But nothing on his body. There are no wounds. There are no head wounds. Nothing. In fact, his body, according to the report, is a well-nourished male, which seems a little surprising to me, considering he was in this sort of unresponsive state for a year. Well, can you explain that kind of contradiction?
So, we agree. We believe that for somebody who's been bedridden for more than a year, that his body was in excellent condition, his skin was in excellent condition. We didn't see any evidence of decubiti or bed sores. Physically, as far as wounds, there were a few small scars that we documented. There was one that we really couldn't explain for medical instrumentation, which some of the other scars we could. But there wasn't anything on the external examination to indicate, other than that one scar that we couldn't explain, to indicate torture. So we didn't see any evidence of healing fractures or healed fractures that would have been within that time frame. If that was one of the things that was asked, is, did he have any broken bones and so forth? Not to our knowledge, not that we've been able to observe or document by medical imaging.
So did somebody, in order for him to be a well-nourished male under those conditions, does that take a lot of work? Because I'm thinking the skin would break down, or I don't know anything, but how much did they care for him? Did they take care of him?
Well, I think most people are familiar with bedridden people. It takes a lot of care and a lot of consistent rotating and conditioning of the skin to make sure that you don't have skin breakdown. So I'm sure that he had to have round-the-clock care to be able to maintain